Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Let's Have Renaissance, a podcast about literature and the arts. I am Ito Otini.
And I'm Makaya Otini, and today we're speaking with Mark Newport. Mark uses textiles and other media to invoke and subvert classic superhero motifs in pursuit of questions about masculinity, vulnerability, protection, and healing. His work is in the collections of museums around the U.S. and is also viewable at the offices of Progressive Insurance and Microsoft. We're excited to be with him today.
Thank you for tuning in. We're excited that you're here. Why don't you also subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode with your friends?
Also, if you haven't yet, sign up for our free newsletter where we share updates, resources, and opportunities. To support the podcast, you can make a one-time donation through our website or purchase a subscription to our blog where you'll find more premium content and resources at thedatekeepers.com. Thank you for being a part of our community.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you. Can you tell us about yourself and what are you working on now?
Sure. I am an artist, full-time artist these days, and was formerly a college professor and sometimes a musician. I live in Portland, Maine right now, and I'm working in my studio in South Portland on a sculptural body of work that uses old sweaters that I've gotten from thrift stores, and then I've cut up and then sewn back together to make a skin over an armature. And in the spaces where the sweaters didn't meet up, I've woven new cloth, sort of like darning and mending. And then the other related series is a series of shirt cuffs that I've been doing for a couple of years. And there's about 30 of those right now. And they also use mending and embroidery, but just on the cuff of a men's dress shirt.
Interesting. And why fabric arts? Why is that your medium?
That's kind of an accident of fate in some ways. My grandmother was a first grade school teacher, and when I was a young kid, I was interested in all sorts of arts. And she taught me how to knit and she taught me how to sew. Fast forward to when I went to college, I was pretty fortunate that at the Kansas City Art Institute, there was a fiber department. And that was where weaving and basketry and printing on fabric were taught. And I had to take an elective in a class other than what my major was, which at the time was painting. And I fell in love with working in weaving for the most part, but also stitching. And as I've grown as an artist, what I think is most important about working with textiles and fabric is the intimacy that they share with our lived experiences. They're next to us every day, whether it's sheets and towels or whether it's our clothes. And they protect us, but they also absorb our experiences and our emotions, and they mark who we are at different times by the fashions that we choose. And I think they're incredibly powerful items in our world.
Do you make wearable art?
I have made wearable pieces. There was a series of hand-knit superhero costumes that I made from 2003 till about 2015. And they were mostly shown as sculptures, but there were some of them that I used in performances in public places for exhibitions. And so they were all potentially wearable, whether they were actually worn or not.
I love these. I'm actually looking at the images on your website right now, and I especially love the one that is like, it's all white and it's got cabling on it, and and the only thing about it that is reminiscent of a superhero costume is that it covers your whole body and face and everything, but otherwise it kind of looks like your grandmother's baggy sweater. It's great.
Thanks. Yeah, that series started with recreations of comic book heroes that you'd recognize from comic books, Batman, Spider-Man, all those guys, only they were transformed into hand-knit acrylic yarn costumes, so they were kind of soft and lumpy and goofy. And as the series grew, I started inventing my own, and that one I think is either a Sweaterman or Argyle Man, which were two heroes that I invented thinking, well, every superhero has their logo. You know, Batman has the bat, Superman has his thing. And what if a cable or an Argyle could be the sign of the hero?
Oh, that's fantastic. What are
Thanks.
their powers?
So it took me a while to figure that out, actually. I knit them for quite a while. And as I was developing the performances, I was doing a series of prints. And I realized in the prints that the power of, say, Sweaterman was that as he knit, he generated energy, sort of like a force field. And in my head, in the stories that I would tell in the prints, the force field could then protect the people that Sweaterman was trying to protect or defend them in some ways. So the idea was that as I knit, this sort of bubble of protection would come over me, which actually, part of that's comic books and reading lots and lots of comic books and watching all those movies. But part of it's also that same grandmother that I mentioned earlier would do craft things after dinner when we were visiting her house. By we, I mean my brother and my family and I. And there could be my brother and I running around creating a ruckus as, 10-year-old boys can do. And it never bothered her. It was like she was in this protective dome of silence and calm doing her craft work. And that's a quality that I understand from my own work at times. So it was the logical. I say logical, like all of that makes sense.
It tracks, but I thought you were going to say something like he can untangle a knotted up ball of yarn in the snap of a finger, or do like a intarsia design that looks good on both sides or something. I used to knit, and I haven't.
Obviously.
I think these would have been really useful powers to have. And I appreciate what you said earlier about the intimacy of wearable items, because I have been steadily losing the things that I knitted and kept for myself. And now all I have left is one glove.
And he's been losing them on the plane.
It's always on the airplane.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
I can't really begrudge the flight attendant or whoever discovers it for keeping it for themselves, because I kind of suspect that's what happened, because that was a nice scarf. I don't know what they're going to do with one glove, but I'm kind of sad about it. Like I only have one lonely little glove left, and I don't have the time or the inclination now to go and start making a whole new set of items, but I sure do miss them.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. I appreciate your desire to have, perfect knit intarsia pattern or any other of those, like unwinding the ball of yarn. I have to admit, unwinding a ball of yarn or a knot in something is just a compulsion I have. I didn't think to give it to the heroes. And I now, because I haven't been knitting the costumes for a while, I actually knit on my own in the evening, and I make sweaters and socks for myself and for friends, and baby hats for friends that are having babies. And I understand the losing or the seeing things start to fall apart. And it's so frustrating because they were perfect when they were done, or as close to perfect as they could be, and they're your own. It's like, oh, what do I do with just one sock?
Do you use machines, or do you make all of your art by hand?
All of my work is done by hand.
Wow.
Yeah, all the costumes were hand knit, and now the mending and embroidery work is all done by hand. With the costumes, it was important to knit those by hand for myself, because part of the backstory of those was that at the time I started that, my children were of an age where they were starting to move around the neighborhood on their own, and kind of freaked me out because I couldn't see them. I couldn't protect them. And I thought, who protects you? Well, the superheroes do. And so the idea was I'd made the costumes so I could be the superhero. So it was important that I knit the costumes. And with the mending and the embroidery, it is almost worldwide. There are some traditions or parts of traditions in textiles in different countries where men do some or all of certain types of textile work, but mostly it's women.
Pirates used to knit their own. Whatever they needed mended, they would knit it themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Fixing sails and stuff. That's.
Say used to. I don't know. Maybe like the Somalian pirates still bring their crochet hooks with them. I really don't know.
I haven't done that research to find out. But yeah, for me, it's important to do that work, because then, like where the mending and the repair is concerned, it's acknowledging a dynamic of who takes care of us and how do we acknowledge our own vulnerability. Because the mending, like, those places where the new fabric is made is almost like a scar in the old cloth. And so it's important for me to think about me doing that healing.
And it's a lot of superhero costumes. How long did that take?
I could knit a costume most of them in about 6 weeks if I was not teaching and doing other things. And the newer pieces, like a shirt cuff, can take me a couple of days, depending on how detailed those get. The bigger pieces, I'll work on those for 3 months or longer, depending on how they grow. Sometimes it takes a while. They get to a spot where they're stuck. And I say it like they're alive, but it's true. They get to a point where I don't quite know what to do next. And so I will put something aside and start a new one and have a couple going at once to try and solve that construction problem.
And I'm particularly interested in what you're exploring in regards to masculinity. You mentioned also healing and protection, and how are those themes interacting with one another?
Yeah. On one level, working with textiles, as we talked about, is something that's generally associated with the feminine. I was very fortunate that my grandmother and my mother were like, no, women can do anything you can do, and you can then knit if you want. And so there was a kind of freedom there. But what's interesting to me about the processes is there are these incremental building mechanisms that also, like, each stitch feels like it's making a wish or giving a kind of kindness to somebody, an act of protection. And a sweater, if somebody actually makes you a sweater, is something that's
a lot of stitches.
It's a lot of stitches. It's a lot of thinking about you, especially if you live in a northern climate like I do in Maine here. Like, it's something that you actually need. So it's something that's taking care of you. And I think that idea of protection was what was key in the superheroes, and flipping gender expectations on who would do that knitting and why they would be protecting was interesting to me, because I like to raise questions about why we think something has to be a certain way, in this instance, gender. And as I finished the costumes and started the mending work, I realized that there was another word. I had dealt with fatherhood and strength and those kinds of words throughout the costumes. But as I moved into the mending, I realized that vulnerability was a word that was probably more appropriate to all of my work, costumes and the mending. And now the gender politic is a little less direct than in the costumes, but I still think the idea of who takes care of somebody and how do they do it, how do we repair those things, like clothes and bodies seem to get the same kind of repairs when I was a kid. If you scuffed your knee, you got a Band-Aid, and your pants got a patch. If you really hurt something, you got stitches. You had to go to the hospital and your clothes had to get repaired or darned. And that parallel between the body and cloth is what's important to me in this work, and how I then take care of it is partially gendered. I can't escape the fact that I'm a 62-year-old man. And I think, how I was raised, who's supposed to take care of somebody, it's not necessarily expected that I would do that kind of work. But I think it's important to think about how we all tend each other and how that builds relationships, and how we develop scars and healing, and how there's new possibilities in that, and there's memories in that. And I'm starting to digress, so I'm going to stop now.
That's interesting. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing the finished piece.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, everyone, for choosing to spend your time with us. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and press that like button. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.